He spent 40 years fixing railroad tracks in freezing temperatures. Worn boots, faded overalls, a lunch pail his wife packed every morning. When he died, his bank statement revealed something nobody saw coming. $4.5 million. According to reports from the Midwest Railway Workers Union, men like James worked in conditions most of us couldn't imagine. Summers where the metal burned your hands, winters where frostbite was just part of the job. $12 an hour wages that barely kept pace with inflation. His name was James, though for privacy we'll keep his last name anonymous. Born in 1947 in a small Indiana town you've never heard of. He wasn't special. No college degree, no connections. Just a man who showed up every single day for 4 decades. James started working for the railroad in 1968, the same year Martin Luther King was assassinated, the year the Beatles released the White Album. He married his high school sweetheart, Dorothy. They lived in a 900-square-foot house with a mortgage payment of $83 a month. No fancy cars, no vacations to Europe. Their biggest luxury? A 14-inch color television they bought on layaway. But here's where the story gets interesting. Every 2 weeks, when that paycheck hit his account, James did something his coworkers never understood. He'd walk into the local bank, and he'd buy shares of companies most people had never heard of. His buddies at work? They spent their paychecks on new trucks, boat motors, fishing gear. James? He bought Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, General Electric. His coworkers called him cheap. His neighbors thought he was crazy. Even Dorothy worried sometimes. But here's what they didn't understand. While they were making payments on things that lost value, James was buying things that multiplied. Every dollar they spent? Gone. Every dollar James invested? Working. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. James's strategy wasn't complicated. In fact, it was almost embarrassingly simple. Step 1. Live on less than you earn. He kept his expenses at around 60% of his income. Step 2. Buy quality companies, not penny stocks, not get-rich-quick schemes, just boring, profitable, dividend-paying businesses. You know, the companies that make toothpaste, and soap, and light bulbs. Things people need whether the economy's good or bad. Step 3. And this is where most people fail. He never sold. Not during the crash of 1987. Not during the dot-com bubble. Not during the 2008 financial crisis. While his coworkers panicked and pulled their retirement accounts, James kept buying. Because here's what he understood, that most people don't. The stock market isn't a casino. It's a compounding machine. Every dividend payment, he reinvested it. Every market dip, he bought more shares at a discount. And time, beautiful, patient time, did the rest. Financial researchers estimate that if you invested just $200 a month in a diversified index fund for 40 years, assuming historical market returns, you'd have over $1.2 million. James invested more than that, and he did it for longer, which is how that railroad salary turned into $4.5 million. February 23rd. James died quietly at home, 81 years old, Dorothy by his side. He'd lived long enough to see his investments grow beyond anything he'd imagined. But he never changed his lifestyle. Same house, same old Chevy pickup in the driveway, same bologna sandwiches for lunch. When Dorothy and the estate attorney opened the brokerage statements, they found accounts worth $4.5 million. Dorothy later told the local paper, "I knew he was careful with money, but I had no idea." The funeral director said the service was modest, maybe 30 people. Co-workers who'd retired years ago. Neighbors. His church pastor. Not one of them knew. But here's what makes this story different. After James passed, Dorothy made a decision. She donated $500,000 to their church to keep the youth program running, just like James would have wanted. And the rest, she divided between herself and a scholarship fund for kids from working-class families who wanted to go to college. Kids like James, who didn't have advantages, but had discipline. So, what can we learn from James? Lesson 1. You don't need a high income to build wealth. You need a high savings rate. James never made more than $40,000 a year, but he saved 40% of it. That's $16,000, invested every single year for 40 years. Lesson 2. Boring wins. While everyone chases the next Bitcoin or meme stock, boring dividend aristocrats quietly compound. Toilet paper companies aren't sexy, but they made James a millionaire. Lesson 3. Time is your superpower, not timing. Time. James didn't try to time the market. He didn't day trade. He just showed up. Every month. For decades. And maybe, most importantly, he lived his life on his own terms. He didn't work 60-hour weeks to impress neighbors. He didn't buy things he didn't need to impress people he didn't like. He just lived. And when it was time to go, he left the world a little better than he found it. If you're watching this, and you're thinking, I could never do that, you're wrong. You don't need to be smarter than James. You don't need more money than James had. You just need to start. $200 a month, invested in a low-cost index fund, for 40 years. Do the math. James spent his life fixing railroad tracks, but what he really built was a legacy. And that's something anyone can do. If this story inspired you, hit that subscribe button. We've got dozens more hidden wealth stories like this one. And drop a comment. What's one thing you're going to change about your finances after hearing James's story? Thanks for watching. And remember, it's never too late to start building your own hidden wealth.